Welcome to Lunchtime with Mr. Mike. And yeah, I know, same shirt as yesterday. Don't hold it against me. And pretty much the same drink as yesterday, because that's how these things happen. So yesterday we were talking something stupid. We were talking about stupid things that we collected. I told you about my Lego collections and the waste of a Pip-Boy purchase that I made that one time. And again, I was really excited. It's especially painful when you think about the fact that I don't make a whole ton of money each year. And so I save up my birthday and Christmas money that people give me and use it for like, hey, mad money. Yeah, I blew like all of it on that thing. So that was regrettable. Anyway, so story time today. We're talking through just random silly things. We talked about this one-time story at camp. Question for you today. This is the question we're going to build to and make comments on. What is the stupidest thing you've ever purchased? Now, it could be similar to yesterday's story where we talked about, the Pip-Boy. But believe it or not, the Pip-Boy is not actually the stupidest thing I've ever purchased. I've purchased a few dumb things. So like I said, I used to buy and sell Legos. Every now and then you get really, really lucky and you can turn around and sell them for way more than they're worth. This one time though, I bought Legos and they didn't go up in price at all. And so I'm pretty much stuck with those sets and I had a bunch of them. Thankfully, they weren't terrible sets, so that's not like a, oh no. But I remember I bought one set that was worth like $200. And I was like, it's Lord of the Rings. It's going to turn around. It's going to be worth so much more. It wasn't. It wasn't worth any more than, and so I'm stuck with an expensive Lord of the Rings set that I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I talked to my friends who are into Lord of the Rings. They're like, you could give it to me. And I go, that's funny. So believe it or not, those things are not my dumbest purchase. My dumbest purchase, years and years ago, I was in New York City with my brothers. And hey, it's lunchtime. You drink at lunch. When I was in New York City with my brothers, I don't know if you've ever been to the city, but in the city they have people who are selling stuff on the streets. And so I went to this, I can't remember if it was on the street itself or it was like a little shop next to the street. They have like these little narrow, cramped shops. And they were selling electronics. And it was back during the maybe generation 1 or 2 of the iPod days, like the iPod touches. So they still had some of the iPod shuffles and some of those, you could still find those. Well, I'm on the street of New York City and they're selling this little mini iPod, so a little iPod like that big. And I think the guy was claiming it was like a 60 gig iPod. Whatever it was, it had a pretty good storage capacity and he wanted to sell it, I want to say for like $20. So I was like, oh, sweet. I mean, and even if it's not a genuine iPod, well, it's an MP3 player and it's got like 20 gigs on it, so cool. And so I grabbed that one, and then there was like a little iPod Shuffle, which you don't see those around too much anymore, but they were little clip-on iPods, like that you could like clip on your belt or in your pocket. And again, he was claiming it was many, several gigs. And back then, all I had as far as an MP3 player was a really, really cool one, but it was called an Arcos. It had a little, it was like this big, and it had a little D-pad on it, and you could take pictures with it, and you could play videos on it, and you could play games on it, and you could play music. It was amazing. I mean, it was better than the Apple products of that time. It was ahead of its time. Okay, like if it still worked, I'd probably still use it today. It was that good of a little device, and this was 15 years ago. Well, anyway, I got all excited, and I think I dropped like $40 on the street on these items. And I was really excited because I was like, oh, dude, I'm getting, players. Well, the weird thing was when I started up the iPod, it had the Apple logo. And I was like, sweet, this is like a legit Apple product. Well, it didn't work like an iPod. And then when I opened it up, each one only had about 1 gig worth of memory, which meant I had been completely scammed. The guy had completely lied to me. It wasn't an Apple product. I learned that later. It was like a MyPod or something. It did not have the storage capacity, didn't have the functionality I thought it did. And so I had bought 2 of these things, so like the little Shuffle and then the little one that was about that big. and I had wasted like $40 buying this thing on the street. Don't do that. And the fun thing about it all is I got harassed because I think we went back the next year and my brothers were making fun of me and saying, you're gonna go buy another MyPod. And so that's one of the dumber things that I have purchased. It wasn't like the most money I've been out, but it was just stupid and I should have known better, but I was excited and my excitement got the better of me. And so for years, they lived in my basement in like a storage box. I probably still have them somewhere. I should get those. So anyway, that's the stupid purchase of the day story. So that's just the little Pip-Boy things there, still up in probably the more expensive stupid purchase I've made. That reminded me, speaking of expensive stupid purchases. Okay, pause the video, leave a comment in the comments. Let me know what stupid thing you've bought. But have you ever bought a car? Because the first car I bought, okay, now I use that carefully, the first car I bought. The first car I owned was given to me by my brother, and that was a mess in itself. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. But the first car that I bought, I was out shopping with my dad, and I had never bought a car before, so I didn't really know what to do. And so this is just kind of pointers. It's lunchtime with Mr. Mike, so here's some wisdom. Always look under the car before you buy it. It's not a bad idea to give it a test drive, all of that good stuff. And if the salesman is absolutely insisting that you have to buy it today and that you're not allowed to take it to your mechanic to get it looked at, don't buy it. So I was shopping for a new car. And so while I was shopping for this new car, I was in this area that had a bunch of car dealerships. And so I was just kind of hopping around the different ones and seeing what they had. And it was almost the end of the day. And there was this Pontiac Grand Prix. It was gorgeous. I mean, it was just this beautiful, beautiful car. And so I pull up, and it was right within my price range. I think my price range was around the $4,000 mark, and that's what it was going for. And I was like, okay, this is a nice looking car. I don't need anything too big. It's just me driving it. I'm looking for a car, so nailed it. And so we asked the guy. We said, hey, can we take it to our auto shop and have them take a look at it? And the guy's like, well, no, we don't like letting that happen because, well, they tend to start messing with parts and then they don't put them back together. Okay, that should have been my first clue that one, this guy didn't know what he was talking about, but two, there's something about this car he doesn't want a mechanic to look at. That should have clued me in. And then he showed me the paperwork, and back in New Hampshire, just so you know, we have these things called inspections, and car inspections basically check, the body of the car, the brakes, various other parts. Out here in California, they just smog check and you're good. But out there, I mean, they're checking rust, they're checking all sorts of things. And so the guy, there was an inspection sticker on the windshield from like 2 months earlier. The guy had a folder full of paperwork and said, hey, this has only had one owner. They took really good care of it. Here's all the paperwork. And so he was basically trying to prove to me that this car was in really good shape. So we bought it. And I was like, yes. And I remember praying that God wouldn't let me get too attached to the car because I was really, really liking this car, and I was like, I'm gonna become obsessed with this car. It's so good looking, it's so cool. And so I took it to my shop to go get inspected because, again, when you buy a new car, you have to go through the inspection and registration process. Well, I'm sitting in the waiting room, and the guy comes out and he goes, did you get this for a song and a dance? That's not fun when you hear a mechanic say that. And so the mechanic said that, and I go, why? Does it look like I should have? And he's like, come here. So I go back into the auto area with him, and I knew these guys. Like they had done a lot of work on my cars, and so they knew my family. They knew me. And they point, and the car's up on the lift. And if you ever get a chance to look at a car up on a lift, you probably would know what I was talking about. But if you don't, you have the metal that kind of runs along the outside of the car, and it's what the body of the car attaches to. And so kind of think like when you open your door and there's like that metal rim that kind of is right there. So that attaches to the undercarriage of the car. Well, what he did is he reached up and he showed me the undercarriage of the car was rotted out so that there were parts that weren't actually connected. Like you could take, like if you reached underneath the car and grabbed onto it, you could do this with it. And so he looks at it and he's like, yeah, like we can't pass this. Like what happened? So long story short, we ended up going to another dealership of the same franchise. We confronted them about it. The fact that it had passed inspection 2 months earlier meant that we could have gotten that inspection station in trouble. We chose not to for various reasons. Basically, we told them to give us a refund, and we left it at that, and we dropped the car off, and they towed it back to where it came from. Turns out later on, my mom knew the previous owner, and it had more than one owner, and the car had been involved in like a hurricane and left in the water for a while, and so that's why it was all rotten out. But it looked gorgeous. I mean, it was just this immaculate, perfect looking car until you got up underneath it, and then it was completely rotted out. So those are just a few of my really stupid purchase stories, and the lessons that I learned are, don't buy things from people in New York City, and never buy a car without looking underneath it, or making sure it has an engine, but I think that's obvious. And so those are just some stupid stories. So let me know what stupid purchase you've made, and what happened with the aftermath. Again, just share those stories. I'm sure they'll be fun.